Hey there, buddy. I'm absolutely thrilled you clicked on this video. If it's your first time here, welcome to the party. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this with your awesome friends or even your grandma. She might love it more than you do. Tell me in the comments. From what city or country are you watching? I read every single one. Alright, let's dive in. My name is Marcus Whitman. I spent 22 years married to Margaret, a span many would consider a lifetime. I used to believe that too. We first crossed paths during our final year in graduate school. She stood out, intelligent, decisive, and carried a kind of quiet presence that made any space feel more welcoming. We didn't take our time. 1 year after finishing school, we got married. Back then, we didn't have much, just entry-level jobs and a worn-down car that wheezed up hills. Those first years were lean but stable. Margaret started doing small freelance design work while I found a job in logistics. It wasn't exciting, but it provided structure. We weren't swept up in grand romance. We were practical and deliberate. It wasn't until 8 years later that we chose to have our daughter, Lena. We agreed that we wanted to wait until our lives felt steady enough to raise a child. When Lena arrived, our lives shifted, but not dramatically. It was a subtle, quiet transition, like a room slowly filling with new light. I took on more duties at work, while Margaret trimmed her client list. We weren't rich, but we left our tiny apartment for a modest house with 3 bedrooms. I drove a used Ford. She had a dependable crossover. We paid our bills on time. Lena thrived in school, and we made it to every teacher conference. People described us as rock solid. That word stuck with me. It didn't sound flashy, but it meant everything, which is why what happened next felt so unbelievable. There's this belief that trouble creeps up when you're not paying attention, but that wasn't us. We were present, steady, until one day, we weren't. There was no obvious drama, no affair, at least not at first, just little things. Plans canceled last minute. Her phone always turned over, always silent. Margaret had never been distant or inattentive before. She always remembered my big meetings, cooked my favorite meals, and made sure I came home to something warm. That kind of intimacy doesn't come from big gestures. It comes from being there, day after day. But after we celebrated 21 years, things started to shift. She began taking her phone into the bathroom every time, always locking the door, always angling the screen away. She laughed at her phone more than at anything I said. One time I asked, "What's funny?" She replied, "Oh, just Sarah, sending dumb memes." Then she added, "You wouldn't get it." Sarah wasn't the type to send memes, but I let it go. You don't question your wife's honesty unless you're ready for the truth that might follow. Friday nights used to be ours. Takeout, wine, the couch. A ritual we'd maintained for 20 years. Then one Friday, she grabbed her keys and told me she had to meet a client late. "They want a walkthrough tonight," she said. I asked, "Since when do you do evening site visits?" She didn't even blink. "It's a high-end job, Marcus. Things change." She said my name with a bite, like the question irritated her. I didn't forget that tone. Another night, around midnight, I got up for a glass of water. Passing the guest bathroom, I heard her laugh. It wasn't the usual one. This was softer, teasing, almost girlish. I paused. Then came her voice. "Stop, Owen," she said, laughing quietly. "You're awful." She lowered her voice, then silence. I knocked gently. The laughter stopped. I opened the door slowly. She looked up from her phone, startled. "Jesus, Marcus. Ever heard of privacy?" "You okay?" I asked calmly. "Yeah, just Sarah being an idiot." She brushed past me, no explanation, no eye contact. I stood alone in the hallway, the silence suddenly different, heavier, charged with something unspoken. I didn't have a name for it yet, but I knew something was wrong. I didn't confront her then, not because I was afraid, but because I needed to be sure. Margaret was sharp. If I challenged her without proof, she'd twist it around and leave me doubting myself. So I observed. Noticed the changes. She wore more makeup, sprayed on perfume I hadn't smelled in years. Her phone never left her side. Then one Thursday, she said she had another late consultation, this one across town. Where exactly? I asked, trying to sound casual. She hesitated. Why? If you're near that Italian place, I might have you bring something back. She named a street I didn't know. I nodded and committed it to memory. Once she left, I waited a few minutes, then followed her, 2 cars behind. 10 minutes later, she pulled into a parking lot behind a trendy cocktail bar. It wasn't the street she'd mentioned. I parked, waited. Soon, a man came out. Early 30s, lean build, stylish coat. He saw her, lit up, and walked over. They hugged, closely, comfortably. Margaret laughed at something he said, then touched his chest like it was natural. They disappeared into the bar. I didn't take pictures. I wasn't looking for proof. I wanted clarity. I waited another hour. They never came back out. Eventually, I drove home, quietly, slowly. I sat alone in the kitchen, lights off, watching the clock, waiting for her to come back. There was no rage, just a deep, hollow quiet. 22 years. That's how long it took for everything to unravel. She walked in just after midnight, her movements light, like there was nothing unusual about the hour. I hadn't moved from the dining table. I waited until the door clicked shut before I said a word. Did the lighting meet his expectations? I asked. She hesitated for a second, then answered over her shoulder without turning. Yeah, he was picky. I got up from my chair. Was it Owen? Her face changed immediately. Whatever casual mask she wore slipped. She turned around, stiff, like her body resisted the motion. What did you just say? Owen, I repeated slowly. The guy you hugged outside Glass and Grain. The one you laughed with over drinks for 2 hours while I sat alone in the car. Her expression collapsed, like someone had cut the strings holding her up. You followed me? She asked, her voice full of disbelief. That's what you took from this? That's your concern, I replied, keeping my tone level. Not the lying, not the secrecy. She crossed her arms and leaned back against the kitchen counter, defensive. Do you think I wanted it to turn out like this? I have no idea what you wanted anymore, I said. You haven't spoken to me like a real person in over a year. Her voice cracked. It felt like I didn't matter to you. You were always gone. At work, in your head, anywhere but here. I felt invisible. You mean I stopped chasing after you for scraps of attention? She didn't say anything. So what now? I asked. Are you leaving? Her answer came barely above a whisper. I don't know. And somehow, that was worse than a clear yes or no. It left us dangling in purgatory. Then we both heard footsteps. Lena appeared at the end of the hallway, half awake, clutching her phone, her hair still tangled from sleep. What's going on? She asked, blinking. Margaret turned toward her like backup had arrived. Your dad's upset, she said. He followed me tonight. Lena's gaze shifted to me, confused. Why would you do that? I looked straight at her. Because your mom's been seeing someone else, someone younger, someone who isn't her husband. Lena didn't look shocked. She didn't look scared. She just looked let down. And that look was aimed directly at me. That's not how you handle things, she snapped. You don't spy on people. You talk. She's been lying for months, I replied. Maybe if you'd actually been around, she wouldn't have needed to, she said. I couldn't respond. I just stood there, watching them both look at me like I was the one who'd ruined everything, like I was the stranger in the middle of their shared story. A week later, Margaret left. No shouting, no sneaking, just a suitcase beside the door on a quiet Saturday morning. I'm going to stay at my sister's for a while, she said without meeting my eyes. We both need some space. I looked at the bag, then at Lena. She was already ready, hoodie on, shoes tied, backpack slung over her shoulder. You're going with her? I asked. She didn't pause. Yeah, it's better. Margaret kept her voice even. Let's not turn this into something ugly, Marcus. We just need time apart. I didn't answer. I just stepped aside and let them go. When the door shut behind them, the silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like a blade. The divorce papers showed up a few days later. Nothing messy, joint assets, clean break, standard terms. My attorney, Harold Knapp, a quiet man with a calm demeanor, reviewed the documents and said, "Are you really going to contest this?" she asked. I shook my head. No, I just want it finished. The divorce was over quickly. She didn't request alimony, probably confident she wouldn't need it. I knew why. I had already looked into things. 2 days after our blowout, I hired Cameron Mays, a discreet, meticulous private investigator and ex-cop. His report confirmed everything I suspected. Owen was a predator, smooth, calculating. He preyed on older women with steady jobs and shaky self-worth. He sold them illusions, startups, apps, travel businesses. They paid. He vanished. None ever recouped a dime. Margaret was simply his latest mark. Cameron's photos showed Owen getting into a BMW Margaret had leased and depositing a thick envelope of cash, timed perfectly with a withdrawal she'd made. I never showed her the evidence. She had made her decisions. I made mine. Let her discover the truth the hard way, just like I had. Watching someone dismantle everything you built is a lesson that teaches itself. 3 months passed in silence. No messages, no calls, not even from Lena. I followed their lives passively, like everyone does now, through filtered photos and polished captions. There were brunches, rooftop drinks, and a Napa Valley wine tour Margaret couldn't have afforded alone. Owen was there in the background at first, grinning, always with his arm wrapped around her like she was a trophy. Then suddenly, nothing. He vanished. No more photos, no more tags. 2 weeks after he disappeared from her feed, I got a message. Not from Margaret, from Lena. "Can I come by after school?" When she arrived, she paused at the doorway like she didn't recognize it anymore. I said nothing, just stepped aside and let her in. She perched on the couch, pulling at her sleeves. "Mom's not doing okay." I stayed quiet. She gave Owen a bunch of money, for a studio, he said. He told her she'd be on the lease. I raised an eyebrow. "He skipped town?" She nodded. Took the cash, her credit card too. Even pawned one of her necklaces, the one that used to be Grandma's. I didn't react. "She cries a lot," Lena added. "Doesn't speak, just sits in the dark, blaming herself." "She should," I replied flatly. Lena looked stunned. "You really don't care anymore, do you?" I met her eyes. "I stopped caring the day you both left, like I never mattered." She lowered her voice. "I was angry. I thought you were cold. I thought you didn't love her anymore. I sacrificed everything for this family, my health, sleep, time, so you never went without." "I see that now," she whispered, but it was too late for realizations. I walked to the door and opened it. "Tell your mother not to contact me, ever." Lena hesitated, then gave a quiet nod. She left without saying goodbye, just like her mother had. Almost 5 months passed before I heard from her again. This time, through casual texts. "Hope you're okay. Think I saw your truck downtown. Titans are losing again." I didn't ignore her, but I didn't invite her back either. Then one Sunday, she just showed up. No warning, just a bag of takeout in hand. "Brought food," she said. Didn't feel like eating alone. I let her in. We ate mostly in silence, trying to ignore the heaviness between us. After a few minutes, she set her fork down. "I was wrong," she said softly, "about everything." I stayed quiet. "I believed Mom because I wanted to. It was easier. You were always working. She was always around. She talked. You didn't." "I talked plenty," I replied. You just didn't want to hear it. She nodded. Yeah, and now I can't not see it. How she stopped trying. How she warps things. She cries at night, loud, keeps saying she ruined the best thing she ever had. She did, I said. Not just with me, with you too. Lena dropped her gaze. I want to come back. Not just for tonight. For good. That stopped me. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she added. I just want a chance to earn it, if you'll let me. She stayed that night. I offered her the guest room. In the weeks that followed, we built a quiet rhythm. Nothing big. I cooked. She cleaned up. We watched the news, played a few games of cards. No grand apologies. Just the small steps of healing. Margaret started writing. Handwritten letters, pages filled with longing and emotion and scattered memories. I read one. Then I burned it. It was a Tuesday when she came back. I'd just gotten home when I saw her car parked outside. Margaret stood at the door, clutching one of her old leather purses. She looked thinner, worn down. Her smile was faint, uncertain, like someone unsure they're still welcome. I just wanted to talk, she said. That's all, I said, crossing my arms with finality. She paused, hesitant, then finally spoke. I need to say something. What about? I asked, my tone guarded. Her voice dropped to something fragile. I messed up. I see that clearly now. I let go of something that was real, something that meant everything, and I regret it. I didn't respond, allowing her to continue without interruption. Owen didn't care about me, she went on. He took what I gave willingly, and I let it happen. I was chasing a feeling, something exciting, and in the process, I ignored what actually mattered. I remained still, giving her the space she needed to get it all out. I remember those nights, she said softly. You working overtime but still showing up for Lena's concerts, covering the bills, repairing things when they broke, remembering all the little dates, our anniversaries. She pulled something from her purse, a worn, folded letter. I wrote this months back. I never mailed it. Didn't think I deserved to, but I need you to hear it. I never stopped loving you. She extended the letter toward me, but I didn't reach for it. You don't have to forgive me, she said quickly. I had to say it. I stopped her before she could go on. You hesitated, Margaret. She looked confused. What do you mean? When it counted, when it was just the two of us, standing against everything, you hesitated. I didn't. I was all in. You weren't. She flinched, visibly stung by my words. I nodded, quietly but firmly. I got through it. I rebuilt my life. I'm not going to sift through the ruins just so you can feel better about walking away from them. She dropped her gaze. Her voice came out thin and low. I get it. I closed the door gently. No drama. No need to make a scene. Just a quiet end, like shelving a chapter that's no longer part of the story. About 10 minutes later, Lena came downstairs. Was that Mom? She asked. I gave a short nod. Is she okay? She's alive, I said. Lena sat beside me on the couch. She didn't press. No follow-up questions. Just quiet company, calm, still, unshaken. Because the version of me Margaret wants back? He's gone. And the man who's here now? He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't blink.